muscular system. Where are the muscles located? So for example, the soleus is on the lower half of the back of the leg, deep within the gastrocnemius. And the pectoralis major is the large chest muscle on the chest. Next. What are the muscle functions? So for example, the soleus is responsible for plantar flexion and the oblique is responsible for lateral flexion of the trunk. Next. What are the muscles' origin and insertion? So the teres major origin is the posterior surface of the scapula, and its insertion is the interpeculius sulcus of the humerus. The biceps origin is the scapula, and its insertion is the radius. Next. The rectus femoris, the function is to extend the knee and flex the thigh. You can see the locations on the diagram. The vastus intermedius is underneath the rectus femoris. The semitendinosus origin is the ischial tuberosity. Next. So the cardiac muscle, it's involuntary. It's the heart muscle, it pumps blood around the body. It works without tiring and it's used in aerobic respiration. Its contraction speed is slow. Involuntary means it does it without us choosing to do it. Next. The skeletal muscle is voluntary, so we choose when to use them. It's also known as striated or striated muscle. There's more than 700 in the body. It's attached to bones, which causes the movements. It's used in aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and its contraction speed is slow and fast. Next. The smooth muscle is involuntary. It's located in hollow organs and arteries. It's used in the digestive system and in blood vessels. It involves peristaltic action, which is when it contracts consecutively one after another. It's used in aerobic respiration, which is when oxygen is present, and its contraction speed is slow. Next. So comparing and contrasting the muscle types. Cardiac and smooth muscles are involuntary, whereas skeletal muscle is voluntary. The cardiac and smooth only work aerobic, whereas the skeletal works aerobic and anaerobic. The cardiac and smooth contract slowly, whereas the skeletal can contract slow and fast depending on the movement. Cardiac and smooth never tire, and the skeletal does tire. Cardiac and the skeletal are striated, smooth is not because it's smooth. So spotting examples of the muscle types. The cardiac muscle is used to pump oxygenated blood to the working muscles. It happens involuntary, which is without our control. So in cycling, for example, it is needed in aerobic situations to help the muscles contract. The muscles that contract are the skeletal muscles, which are attached to the bones and used aerobically and anaerobically with slow and fast contractions. Slow aerobic contractions will be needed in endurance cycling stages, whereas fast anaerobic contractions will be needed for sprinting, perhaps at the end of a race. The smooth muscle will be used, for example, in the digestive process, which gives the cyclist energy to compete for long races or short, intense ones. Furthermore, in rugby, smooth muscles are used for the digestive process, and also the smooth muscles in the bladder are used to expel urine, so the rugby player will not be bloated and full of liquid while competing in the heavy contact sport. Skeletal muscles are used too in rugby as they contract and relax to create movement and power. For example, a simple action such as throwing the ball involves the extension of the arm and the contraction of the tricep, which is a skeletal muscle. Finally, the cardiac muscle will be heavily used as rugby is a demanding sport and it requires quick and efficient oxygen supply, for the muscles. This process is taken care of by the heart muscle. Next. So different muscle fibre types. Type 1 is slow twitch, it's deep red, works aerobically and it's endurance based. So it can contract repeatedly and it exerts minimal force. Next. Type 2A is fast twitch and it's a middle red, works aerobically. It's used mainly in team sports or events such as 200 or 400 metre races. It's fairly resistant to fatigue and it exerts medium force. Next. Type 2B is very fast twitch, it's white and it works anaerobically. It's speed and power based events, and so that it's used in sprinting. It's very easily fatigued and it exerts maximal force. Type 1 and type 2A work aerobically, whereas type 2B works anaerobically. Type 2A and type 2B twitch fast, type 1 twitches slowly. Type 1 and type 2A are a shade of red, type 2B is white. Type 2A and type 2B is power based, type 1 is endurance based. Type 1 exerts minimum force, type 2A exerts medium force, type 2B exerts maximum force. Next. The type 1 muscles are used in football because they contract slowly, so this means they can last for long periods of time without fatiguing. A football match is 90 minutes, so this means the players use these fibres. They are also used in tennis, as the average match lasts about 2 hours for a female and about 3 hours and a half for a male. Type 1 fibres have low force production because they contract slowly. This allows them to be highly resistant to fatigue. Type 2A muscle fibres are used in 400 metre races as they contract fast and are used for activities lasting less than 2 minutes. They have a high force production, which is good for this sporting event as power is needed. In addition, this muscle type is used for moderately heavy weightlifting, which is usually 8 to 12 reps. Type 2B is used for heavy weightlifting, which is usually 1 to 3 reps, and this requires maximal force and very fast contractions, which are characteristics of this type. Finally, type 2B is used for 100 metre sprinting, as this only lasts around 12 seconds and it requires the highest amount of force. Next. The sliding filament theory. Nervous impulse arrives at neuromuscular junction, which causes a release of a chemical called acetylcholine. The presence of acetylcholine causes a depolarization of the motor end plate, which travels through the muscle by the transverse tubules, causing calcium to release from a sarcoplasmic reticulum. In the presence of high concentrations of calcium, the calcium binds to troponin, changing its shape and so moving tropomyosin from the active site of the action. The myosin filaments can now attach to actin, forming a cross bridge. The breakdown of ATP releases energy, which enables the myosin to pull the actin filaments inwards and so shortening the muscle. This occurs along the entire length of every myofibril in the muscle cell. This occurs along the entire length of every myofibril in the muscle cell. The myosin detaches from the actin and the cross bridge is broken when an ATP molecule binds to the myosin head. When the ATP is then broken down, the myosin head can again attach to an actin binding site further along the actin filament and repeat the power stroke. This repeated pulling of the actin over the myosin is often known as the ratchet mechanism. This process of muscular contraction can last for as long as there is adequate ATP and calcium stores. Once the impulse stops, the calcium is pumped back to the sarcoplasmic reticulum and the actin returns to its resting position, causing the muscle to lengthen and relax. Antagonistic pairs. Antagonist and agonist muscles often occur in pairs called antagonistic pairs. As one muscle contracts, the other relaxes. An example of an antagonistic pair is the biceps and triceps. To contract, the triceps relax while the bicep contracts to lift the whole arm. An agonist is a muscle whose contraction moves a part of the body directly. An antagonist is a muscle whose action counteracts that of another specified muscle. The fixator in a movement is the muscle that stabilises the origin of the agonist and the joint that the origin moves over in order to help the agonist function most effectively. The synergist in a movement is the muscle that stabilises the joint around which the movement is occurring, which in turn helps the agonist function effectively. Synergist muscles also help to create the movement. Next. Types of contractions. Isometric. They do not create movement, they don't change in length. This is called static strength. They support weight in a stationary position. It holds the body still in positions such as performing on the rings in gymnastics. Finally, it can stabilise part of the body so movement can take place anywhere else. Concentric contractions are those which cause the muscle to shorten as it contracts. An example is bending the elbow from straight to fully flexed, causing the concentric contraction of the bicep muscle. Concentric contractions are the most common type of the muscle contraction and occur frequently in daily and sporting activities. Eccentric contractions are the opposite of concentric and occur when the muscle lengthens as it contracts. This occurs when lowering the dumbbell down in a bicep curl exercise. The muscle is still contracting to hold the weight all the way down, but the bicep muscle is lengthening. Isokinetic produces movement at a constant speed or angular velocity over a joint's range of motion. It is used to test and improve muscular strength, sometimes used whilst injured. It is specialised for machines to maintain a constant speed of movement, mainly used in maximum strength workouts.